Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to the Shred Coach podcast with Tom Adams. On this episode, Tom chats with Jay Burns of Crown Information Management based in Winter Haven, Florida. Jay shares how his personal growth and development as well as the evolution of the business has been deeply impacted by an external coach. If you've considered hiring a coach, Jay shares his experience and some recommendations for you in this episode.
Jay Burns, welcome to the Shred Coach podcast. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. It's so good to have you on the show. So let's set the context. Tell me a little bit about your company, where you are, what's your service area. Let's start there.
Yeah, we're in Central Florida, in the heart of Florida, a city called Winter Haven, Florida, and we're actually right in the middle between Tampa and Orlando. And been in business 19 years.
Wow.
We have a couple of other locations. We have a Daytona Beach location, and then 3 years ago, we acquired a small shredding company in Fort Myers, and now we have a truck down in Fort Myers.
Got it. Nice. And are you fully truck? Are you a full truck operation? Do you have a plant? What's the makeup of your shredding business?
Yeah, we're probably 99% mobile shredding. I started that way, and now that we've been doing it for so long, it's kind of hard to get away from that, just the way we're set up. And so we're strictly mobile, and we also can obviously do the hard drives, since we have the hard drive machines in our trucks now. And then in the Winter Haven office, our main location, we also do record storage. So
okay.
We've been in record storage for about 10 years now.
Okay. So that part of the business is obviously a unique and interesting side of it in this industry. How much focus of your attention goes to record storage versus shredding? Is it like an 80-20 split? How do you kind of see it in your mind?
Sure. Probably as much as our revenue is probably 90-10, probably. So,
okay.
Yeah, we found this amazing building. It used to be a boat storage facility and high ceilings, and we just thought it was the perfect package for us to go after that building, acquire it. And from there, we started the record store from scratch. And As most people know, it's a long, slow sales process.
Yeah.
And I'm still glad we did it, but capital intensive for sure, long sales cycle. But overall, it's going well. A lot of the racking that we've purchased over the years is about to be paid off. So we're going to be able to see more cash flow from that side of the business. But we still have if we have half the warehouse full now, we still have another half to fill. So
right.
It's always a reminder when you walk in every morning and see half the warehouse empty. But at the same time, it just takes one big one or a couple decent sized ones that would fill the warehouse, and I'm singing a different tune. So
yeah. Well, one other question about your overall business. What's how many staff, like full-time equivalent staff do you have with Crown? What's your current number roughly?
Yeah, I think we have about 35 employees, probably about 15 of those are service techs or drivers. And the other ones are a mix between administration and sales.
Got it. So you've been in the game a long time, roughly 20 years, you said. So you've had a lot of life and experience in this now. As you know, the focus of our podcast is things you've done that create, a really solid result for you. So what's happening in your world, or what's happened in the last number of years that feels like it's given you a lot of leverage or direction or focus, or tell me what's going on for you?
Yeah, I guess when I first started, I first met my first major partner, so to speak, in the industry was Shred First, and those guys were John Balknight and Nick Weldrick and Ray Berry, and I was actually the second person to ever go through their shred school, and just really learned a lot about those guys and how they ran their business, how their culture worked, how to treat employees, how to at least look to scale your business. So when I first got in the industry, to be able to see that type of business and see how they operated and know that, hey, this level of business is possible. That to me was a huge find for me, to be able to find that company, find those individuals who are willing to share their techniques and strategies, as opposed to, maybe if I would have ran to somebody who only had 2 trucks and been in business 20 years. Those guys, I think they probably said they had 100 trucks, but they didn't have a lot of trucks, but they ended up selling out to Cintas, I think in 2007. But just a bunch of great guys, and learned a lot from them. And they had a the teacher's heart, so to speak, where they weren't worried about competition. They were just trying to help others, and learned a lot from them.
Yeah. So if you were their second person, I mean, they were around a long time. They originally founded, Ray and team founded Shred School. So like when that first happened, what was sort of some of the major impact of that in your early business? What levers did that pull for you? More than just knowing what a big company looked and acted like, what were some of the major effects that came out of that for you?
Really, just, I was 26 years old when I started the business. So I graduated. I was 23 years old. My first job was with Black & Decker, an entry-level job. And, I was out there in marketing and talking to end users of power tools and maybe the retail side as well, but didn't really know how to go about and start a business. And the Shred School back then was 1-to-1. So I was sitting there across the table from Nick Wildrick and Ray Berry. And so it was almost, at the time, it was kind of VIP treatment, so to speak. But the simplest thing, which I think, helped me out and helped me grow faster than the typical company, was just the CRM. To be honest with you, it's pretty simple, but ACT back then was my go-to.
Yeah.
And obviously everybody has Salesforce now, and it's basically ACT on steroids. But looking back at it, just to be able to understand the sales process and how to follow up with people and how to maintain that information and be reminded to set alarms to call somebody in a month or send a letter in 2 weeks. And, in 03, 04, obviously the internet was around, but I don't remember us having pay-per-click or any of that kind of stuff. So it was all outbound. And
Right.
in college, I sold books door to door just to kind of learn the sales cycle. So the sales part wasn't necessarily a big deal as far as being rejected, but with this industry, we all know that there's a lot of small customers. So you need a lot of volume, and just to be able to manage how you keep up with prospects, how you remind them of our services. And so as simple as it sounds, the ACT software, the CRM at an early age, to me, was a huge asset to implement.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that for you, because I'm assuming based on what you just said, you were the lead salesperson in the company at that point. So that information coming out of Shred School pushed you to get ACT. You then go back and implement CRM, and it just starts to drive sales for you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember, I would basically move back into my parents' house at 26 and turn my bedroom into my office. And I would just, smile and dial and send letters from there. If I got a job, I'd jump on the truck and run the truck. And then if I wasn't, I was either on the phone, sending out letters, going to networking events, sending out my cards. And there was one story where I was actually on the phone with somebody, and my mom's actually coming down the hallway, asked if I wanted lunch. I told the lady who I was on the phone, I said, "Excuse me, that's my secretary. I got to take this." It was actually my mom asking for make me lunch. So that was a funny story. But yeah, I mean, I did everything. And to now, it's kind of exciting now. I look back, I mean, you hear about people working somewhere for 20 years or being somewhere for 19 years. I'm like, it just went so fast. As long as it's going well, it goes fast. But when you look back, there's a lot of trials and stressful times. But at the same time, you look back, you're like, well, it all worked out. But obviously, at the times of those trials, you don't feel that way.
Yeah, well, it's such a good story, Jay, because being in your parents' house at 26, dialing for dollars, making things happen, your mom bringing you lunch is really such an important part of understanding how this business operates. And to be in it 19 years later, you've had so much flywheel effect now. Undoubtedly, you've probably still got clients who you got early on that are still with you, I'm guessing.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And that's the massive advantage I see in people who have done what you've done. Just it keeps flying, and then it's just grow. And it's incremental a lot. It's not big, but it really makes things happen. So besides ACT, or maybe you want to sort of move forward in the timeline, because that had obviously a big leverage effect in your business. Has there been other levers related to what Shred School did for you or other kinds of influence or whatever that really has driven the company forward?
Yeah, about 10 years ago, I joined a business group called Vistage, and they're nationwide. And obviously, you join other business owners. And that was obviously an absorbing visage. I've been there probably 11 years and see other business owners and how they react to situations and issues. And you just learn a lot about when they have issues, you learn from their trials. But what really took it to the next level was one of the members had a coach or a consultant, and we ended up hiring her, and she's been with us now for 6 years. And it just really helped take myself and my team to the next level, understanding where we should be, what our thought process should be. If you really want to, go to the next level, whether it's revenue growth or scalability or working in culture. This person, our coach, she has a lot of experience with Procter & Gamble. So she's seen the corporate structure. She's seen how to coach people. And so we've really learned a lot from her. Not only does she coach me, but she coaches my managers too. So if I'm managing difficult, she's able to coach them on how to handle Jay. So all around it's really helped us. Before, as naive and as elementary as it might sound, I used to think meetings were just a waste of time, that just to go through an agenda that we all know what's going on. But she got me into the flow of having managers meetings, which is obviously very, very basic. And before you know it, I was like, wow, what I think is elementary, my team members are getting so much out of this, not only exchanging that information, but it's building those bonds and the culture between them. So that had to be, like I said, 7 years ago. We've over doubled in size since that happened. So I'd like to think a lot of that is because of her work and our partnership.
Yeah. And often in situations like that, you're still doing the work, but there's this perspective shift that begins to happen undoubtedly. Like you just said, even related to meetings. Meetings change when somebody gives you the perspective to change them and help you to look differently at them. So how does she intersect with you as it relates to, say, your management team? Does she show up in meetings? How are you experiencing her, her integration with you as a team? I mean, she's been at it for 7 years, so you got deep roots with this person now.
Sure. Well, first it was, she sat in a meeting to kind of to watch and see the different personalities and my personality and how I dealt with things. And so over the years, she's learned my strengths, my so-called opportunities for growth or weaknesses. And we've all taken these personality assessments. And one of the opportunities I have for growth is my emotional side. I'm a pretty emotional person when things happen. And one thing she's really helped me to get a lever on is the reaction of when something bad happens or, so first she'd sit in a meeting, but after that I would run the meetings. And after that we had situations when we have our monthly get-togethers or phone calls, a lot, just bounce the ideas off her is also a huge thing. Cause sometimes we're thinking, am I even on the right track, or playing out scenarios of like, hey, I had this employee issue. This is what I did. I think I handled it pretty well, but what else could I have done?
Right. Yeah. It's that trusted voice that you have over a long period of time that allows you to have, really honest conversations that you can't always have with your team. So
exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool. Where else do you feel like she's provided significant benefit to you? It sounds like, you talked about your personal emotional reactivity or reaction. What, from the business side of things versus just the purely personal, professional side, what else has been some of the influence that you've seen, and how has that affected the business as a whole?
Yeah, I think it probably have to be within the culture aspect. I came up with the idea I wanted to do focus groups. So we started out with our drivers, and we all know that we can talk to we're blue in the face to our drivers and ask them to tell us what we're doing wrong or what can we do better. But 99% of them aren't going to open up to you. So she actually would take them 2, 3, 4 at a time to lunch or dinner. And obviously we had a set of questions in agenda of what we wanted to gather from them. And what is Crown doing right? What is Crown not doing so right? What should Crown continue to do? What should Crown change? And it was eye-opening. I mean, it was huge. And I'll be the first one to admit, when I got all the feedback and she sat across the table from me, my face was red because I was so angry at what I thought was frivolous, silly things they wanted. But looking back at it, it was the best thing I ever did. And we'll continue to do that that focus group idea with our sales team, with our front office. And I kind of see myself or our company doing it on a regular basis, maybe every other year or every 2 years, you pick a different department and do that focus group. Because the personalities change, the people change. The leaders I have now have all started with me from the ground up, and they've grown with me. And so that has been huge that they've grown with me. But at the same time, a lot of them didn't ever anticipate them running a department or being a manager or us getting as large as we are. They started out as just typical admin people doing data entry. Now they're dealing with drivers and dealing with situations that they probably didn't think they were capable of doing. And so, now we're just now getting ready to probably hire outside of the company just to bring some fresh ideas and different leadership styles to our group. But I think the culture and the focus groups and understanding, obviously in this day and age, everybody wants to make money and everybody wants to grow, but making it a small business atmosphere, so to speak, and where you remember a birthday, you remember anniversaries, that all adds up. And if you do those things, I think long-term and consistently, if somebody's offered a bigger pay package, so to speak, they're probably not going to leave. Unless it's just that much higher.
Right. Let me jump back into that focus group concept a bit, because I think it's a really powerful example of what you're talking about here. If you had have personally done the focus groups, what would have been missed from her doing that?
I would not think of half the questions that she would have asked.
Yeah.
Or the way she asked them or went about asking them, first of all.
Yeah.
I tend to be a very direct person. And so that wouldn't have gone well. I think they obviously open up to her because I'm not there.
Right.
We made it anonymous where, I don't care who said it. We just want to know what the information is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so those two things are definitely the biggest two items that I can think of. But even just doing the focus groups that we give a damn.
Right.
And we actually care.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, to make it even better, to actually come back to those guys and say, listen, this is what you said. This is what we heard. And this is what we can change. And this is what we can't change. And to me, there's not many people, I don't think, companies these days. I know that the last 2 years for us have been crazy, and we've lacked on those things of the culture and little things that add up because we've just been trying to keep the train on the tracks, but we're trying to get back to that level. But overall, these big companies, they probably don't, we run the balance sheet more than they do their people. And I think that's a huge advantage for us, is to really focus on those people and those focus groups.
Yeah. So let me come at it a different angle, because I think this is such an important process that you've engaged with this consultant. What have you learned about, if somebody came to you and said, I want to hire somebody in my backyard, or I want to hire somebody who does this, what should I be looking for? How should I be thinking about this? What have you learned from that perspective? Because you've been with somebody a while now, but what are the lessons, not so much in terms of what it's done for the company, but how you hired or how you have kept somebody that has that kind of capability?
As far as personally, how I reflect.
Yeah, well, because people often want a coach, and that's what I do too, but there's a fit sometimes that has to happen. There's got to be something that allows you to go, this is somebody I'm willing to work with, versus all of the available options out there. Because there's a lot of people pitching coaching. There's a lot of people who talk about it. The question is, you've worked with somebody for a long time. There's obviously reasons you chose this person, and there was sort of criteria for you in some regard.
Yeah, first of all, just obviously referrals. Seeing how you hear about somebody is huge. Who are these people that are referring to them? And the companies I knew were successful and had pretty great owners, sharp owners. And then after I met her, it wasn't some coach that was up in your face or pretended that she knew everything or had all the answers. Typically, just like a good salesperson, they listen, and they really listen, and they have experience, and they've been where you've been before. And, a lot of us taking, let's face it, in my opinion, it's as you get larger and expand, it's more or less emotional intelligence, not letting your emotions dictate your decisions and staying in the center, so to speak. And, that's one thing she's helped all of us learn, that maybe something bad happens. Doesn't mean you need to respond to it that day or even that week, and that was huge for me. I've always been, one of our things around our company is have a sense of urgency, take care of it, take care of the customer.
Yeah.
If something's going on, take care of it. But that's not necessarily true when making decisions. And I've learned that over the last, 6-7 years, that there might be an employee that's giving you some issues, and as long as it's not going to be a safety hazard or anything extreme, let it play out. Maybe have a little touch point with them and have a small conversation and come back to it. So how to deal with situations and not having to have this, it may not be all a decision or a situation you handle in one day or 1 hour. It may be over time. And with that, taking the emotion out.
Yeah, that's good. So if somebody comes to you and says, I want to do this, what advice would you give them? Like another shredding company came to you and said, I want to do something like this. What's the advice?
Yeah, you got to be coachable, as far as got to be open-minded. I think there's a lot of feedback I got that I really didn't like, right. And so you have to be willing to be open to change and different ideas. I knew that, being a 26-year-old, I didn't have a lot of experience in management, obviously, or running the business. And even though I didn't meet her till probably 13, 14 years in my business, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so, somebody with a lot of experience and has a proven track record, somebody who hasn't just been consulting their whole life, has a long record of success, whether that's with a company or their own business, just kind of walked that line already.
Yeah. No, that's really good, because I think what you said there, be coachable, and that sense of honesty about it's not all easy stuff. Like you got to put yourself on the line before you bring somebody into your company in a more full way. You got to be open about the fact that you're often the biggest challenge in these businesses. So those are difficult processes to work through. So yeah, that's really helpful. So any final words on hiring coaches or advisors that you've learned over the years?
Just with lots of feedback. Ask about their current clientele. And I think maybe even more important, their past clients who may or may not be with them anymore. Maybe somebody who's been there or worked with them 5 years ago, not just the present ones. And I think that says a lot about who that person could be.
Yeah, that's really good. So another kind of question from another angle as we come to the end of this conversation. This has been really helpful. Thank you for your perspective on things, Jay. But there's a lot of people who know Florida, but there's a lot of people who don't. And if somebody comes to Winter Haven and you're, as a born and raised, been there all your life, what's the non-negotiable thing to do in wherever you think, based on your perspective, what's the thing that non-Floridians need to know about when they come to your area, whether that be Orlando, Winter Haven, that you have an inside track, I know?
Yeah. As far as geography, the cool thing about my business is we're an hour from Orlando, an hour from Tampa. So It's almost like I couldn't have picked a better spot to start a business from a logistics and business wise. But as far as the culture and the areas, we actually had Florida's first theme park here. It was called Cypress Gardens.
Oh, yes.
That was the first, Florida's first theme park. And that was before Disney. Disney was I think was in the 70s. And that was in the 50s, I think, when Cypress Gardens started. And back then, Johnny Carson and all the big names would come down here to do shows and everything. And now it's Legoland, Florida now. But we do have what's known as the Chain of Lake City, where we have 18 plus lakes all connected by canals. And it's pretty cool. I actually can take my boat if I wanted to from work to the office by canal. So it's pretty neat.
And have you ever done that?
A couple of times. Yeah, definitely.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? So what's your boat?
I just have a pontoon boat. Now I've got a wife and 3 small children, and having a lot of truck debt, as you know, you gotta have a cheap, simple boat. So I got a pontoon boat, and
that's
we'll
beautiful.
go around on there, and there's restaurants and everything you can stop by and eat. And so if I have a good week, I'll take the pontoon boat right in, and on the way home, stop by the bar and have a cold one.
That's beautiful. Jay, this has been really good. I feel like you've given us some insight into your thinking and what's been really beneficial to your business. And as someone who kind of lives on the other side of the conversation we've just had, it's been really helpful to hear how you've processed that with somebody else. And I hope for anyone in our industry who's listening that there will be a lesson for them in terms of the importance of hiring outside help to advise and guide and coach them through it. So thank you. Really appreciate you sharing this today.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate your time.
Thanks again for listening to the Shred Coach podcast with Tom Adams. Make sure to visit theshredcoach.com for regular functional training modules directly from Tom, and subscribe to our email list so you can have first access to brand new $10,000 strategies and ideas from trusted shredding and business professionals.